What's up, everybody? Philan Speaks back for another video. Today, I woke up this morning really, a lot earlier, but later tuned into First Take, the famous show led by the great Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman. And they were speaking on the game that took place last night in Philadelphia between the Washington Wizards and the Philadelphia 76ers. And the topic of the conversation, unfortunately, was not how well Joel Embiid played or how well Ben Simmons bounced back with more points, though I think his first game was better than this one. But because everyone cares about points, people will probably think his game two was better, though he did score more points. But these were not the topics of discussion, but more so they were centered around what happened to Russell Westbrook, who I understand is given the nickname Russell Westbrick because of the way he plays, but that's neither here nor there. What happened with Russell Westbrook was the team got spanked pretty much. They were down about 20 or 17 when he exited after tweaking his ankle for the second time, and then was subsequently had a whole bag of popcorn poured on his head by one of the fans that were in the Philadelphia stands. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman talked about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Particularly bad last night during playoff games in New York and Philadelphia. A New York fan appeared to spit at Trae Young, the ultimate sign of disrespect, and a Philly fan dumped popcorn on an injured Russell Westbrook.
By the way, spitting is horrible. To me, spitting is the most disrespectful thing you could do to someone. If you're going to do something to me, just punch me. Don't spit on me, because now you're saying I'm not even worthy of a punch. So that's just a side thing. I'm just saying.
They want to come up, and the guy went down the street and pour popcorn on my head. You know what happened? The guy went to come up.
What happened, Russ? You gonna beat him up? Yeah, all right. Or your security's gonna beat him up.
That's about my kids, family on the street, but the response to be different.
Kids are your family. What are you talking about?
In these arenas, you got to start protecting the players, man. We'll see what the NBA does.
All right. LeBron James echoing that sentiment, tweeting this. By the way, we as the players want to see who threw that popcorn on Russ. There's cameras everywhere. While he was leaving the game tonight with an injury, there are.
Here comes the ambassador, right, of the world, LeBron James, who right now at the end of his career will go down probably, and according to most people, as a top 5 player in the league. Some misguided people will believe he's the best player to ever play in the NBA. While I certainly disagree with them, one thing I will agree is that he plays this ambassador role very well. He has a number of advisors every day who I'm sure tells him, "Hey, LeBron, you should go in there and put out a tweet right here because you won't be able to defeat Michael Jordan in terms of winning percentage of championships." Like, basically, that guy was able to do in 14 years what you have not been able to do in 17 or 18 so far. So because of that, what they want to do is make sure LeBron James beats Michael Jordan in the area of better human being. So they tell him, go out there and say these things, speak up for Russell Westbrook and your players and your friends and stuff like that. Like, I get it. So while LeBron saying this means nothing to me, to some people it will mean something. And for him, because he's legacy driven, this is what he does.
Cameras all over arenas, so there's no excuse, because if the shoe was on the other foot, #protect our players.
Protect them from popcorn, the most overly dangerous popcorn that could possibly, take them out. Give me a break.
Yeah.
How should the NBA respond to this?
They should come down incredibly harsh on that fan. They should ban him at least for the entire 2021-2022 season. That's a first offense. A second offense, he should be banned for life. We can't tolerate this. Russell Westbrook is absolutely right. LeBron James is 1,000%.
Russell Westbrook was absolutely angry because his team got spanked by over 20 and there was nothing he could do about it. Had he won that game and went out there and had popcorn poured on him, what he would have done is yelled at those people, "Yeah, that popcorn ain't gonna stop me from whooping your team's ass," or something of that nature. I'm sure he would have loved the popcorn. He would have sat there and embellished it. Yes, this is great, right? But when you lose, everything is different. And Russell Westbrook is known as probably one of the people who take losing, the hardest out of any players that I've probably ever seen. And so the response you got is what you got. But let's stop acting like he was in some sort of physical danger.
Right, especially with the point that what if it were the other way around? What if the shoe was on the other foot? He's absolutely positively on the money. Let's call it what it is. Russell Westbrook, we're not condoning violence. We're not advocating it by any stretch of the imagination. But if Russell Westbrook had been able to get to that dude and put his hands on him, I'm sorry. Would he have not been justified? I think he would have been. Again, we're not advocating that because obviously...
Of course, but the reality is Russell Westbrook would not be able to get to that person. If he could and he beat him up, then that's fine. If you can get to him. But Russell Westbrook has to understand the situation he's in, that he has everything to lose, whereas that person who threw the popcorn has everything to gain. You go up there and you beat that man to breaks. That man is going to sue Russell Westbrook for $1 million, and in a courtroom, they're not going to believe that, having popcorn dumped on you justifies you beating the brakes off of someone. All right. Now, if you can take some popcorn and dump it back on that person, I'm sure then you'd be fine. But I'm sure Westbrook's anger looked like, he's trying to beat somebody up. He probably knew he wouldn't be able to get to the guy, so you had to do that anyway. But that's neither here nor there.
That brings a whole different connotation to the equation. But nevertheless, that's the point that we're talking to here. The fact that people feel that they can do anything they want. The primary reason they feel that way is because they don't have to worry about any repercussions, any ramifications.
That's really not true. Actually, the repercussions would be like what Stephen A. Suggested. Typically, when a fan does something like this, they're going to be kicked out of the game. They're not going to get their refund. And if they're a season ticket holder, a lot of times they'll be banned and not get their refund. Or they may even be worse than that, banned from going to any NBA game whatsoever. And I believe that's an appropriate response.
For literally throwing something on another player, putting figuratively speaking, putting your hands on them, because that's essentially what you did by throwing something on them. You have no right to do that. You can boo all you want to, but you have no right to do that. We've seen these kind of actions before.
I agree that fans do not have the right to do that. I agree that it is disrespectful, but what I'm not going to do is act like he threw a knife at him or shot at him. That I will not do.
We've seen the woman in Atlanta going after LeBron James. We've seen the older white individual sticking up both middle fingers at Russell Westbrook.
Now, let me stop this here for a second. All right, what does it matter that he's an older white guy versus Westbrook? See, this is the thing that I'm not going to do. I am a black man here. But I'm not one of those black guys that believes every single thing that a white person does to me is fueled by racism. That I will not do. A person has to show more than just disrespect for me to assume that it's racism. You have to do more than just a middle finger. Okay, now if you say, fuck you, you black, blah, 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 then that's more of an indicator. But if a person is a fan at a game, because I've gone to games and I can be wild, and normally I don't give a damn what a person's color is of a player. Either you're good or you're bad. Those are the two things I see on a basketball court or a football field. And I assume that that's how it is with most of the fans that are there. Right? They're giving Westbrook a middle finger, which, is not good character. But typically games aren't good character places. But that's something I do expect Russell Westbrook to be able to handle. See, sensitivity is understandable and everyone has different degrees of it. But, you should be able to handle someone putting up a middle finger to you. Someone who is probably admires you, someone who's jealous of you sometimes, and someone who is really you're about to go home to a Camaro, beautiful wife, or if you're not even going to go home, maybe you're going to go get with 10 women who do that sort of thing. Who knows what you're going to do, but you're making millions to play a game, whereas this guy's going to go home to his miserable life, where the highlight of his day is going to watch you play, right? For me, it's just not the same thing, all right?
The New York Knicks game last night, I had no idea until this morning somebody actually spit over 50 Cent sitting courtside and spit on Trae Young. That is inexcusable.
Yeah, you spit on somebody and you close to them, they can get to you. Yeah, you got to be careful. You might get your ass whooped if you do that. But look at this here, this other incident that happened with Westbrook here. Look at this.
Pandemic. We're still in a pandemic.
Now that person should be arrested. That person right there should.
Westbrook is worrying about this guy putting up his middle finger. And this is why Westbrook is not the winner that he should be. Instead of focusing on that game and making sure you win that game and humiliate that team, he wants to sit there and think about this loser-ass boy with his Iverson jersey on, okay, who probably had his glory days back in the 90s, right? He wants to sit there and focus on this guy being thrown out instead of winning the game. And that's the difference between like a guy like LeBron James who's locked in, who I'm sure has probably had the same type of treatment, or Kawhi Leonard who's probably had the same type of treatment. It's the difference between those guys who will lock in and completely ignore a fan, and a guy like Westbrook who endears it, who feeds into it. And this is why I'm not being soft on Westbrook, because I don't respect the way he feeds into things that fans do. I have a great amount of respect for guys that lock in and who win, who take that energy and they lock in even harder. Like a Kobe Bryant, you try this shit with Kobe Bryant, what's he going to do? He's going to score 50 on your damn team. He's going to blow your team out. That's the thing that's going to make the fans stop, right? Reggie Miller used to do this stuff to us back in the 90s. He did it in Madison Square Garden and he did it here, right? The main way you shut a fan up is you win the game, all right? Period.
Be arrested. Make no mistake about it. So the NBA.
What is he doing? What is Westbrook doing? All of that is a waste of time. You should be focusing on getting down there and scoring. Who cares about this asshole putting his middle finger up to you? You're Russell Westbrook.
Definitely needs to come down heavily on them, but I think the media can.
Like any of that overly sensitive crap. Sorry.
Also get involved in policing this kind of situation with this. Put the person's name on television. Put their face on television. Treat it like a mugshot. Put them on a jumbotron at the game. Make sure you embarrass and humiliate and publicize who the hell they are. Shame them, just like you would do a player. If a player did something like this, they'd be plastered all over the media.
A player is not going to do that because a player has the potential of losing millions of dollars. That's why players are not going to do that, okay? That's why players are not going to do that. Why would a player go and mess with a fan anyway? Right? The fans are there to see the players, right? But this is part of the age that we're in, where overly sensitized, sensitive people, and everyone is offended by everything that's going on. Where it's really a time where, if you believe in Scripture, Scripture talks about a time where the human being is pretty much going to worship itself, going to worship themselves. They're going to see like the desire of the human being, the want, and the human being's desires and wants is going to be what's actually worshipped, and they'll take that, like a person saying, well, I believe I'm a lion, okay, and now we're going to be saying, okay, that opinion of that person is valid, even though when we look at them, we see that they're a man. But because they say they're lying and they feel they're lying, then we're going to say that that opinion is justified because that's the way you feel. Right? This is the time we're in. So now, but me, I don't support it because I know better. All right?
Yeah, they be plastered all over television and the like. How come we can't do that to the fans that engage in such insidious behavior? Publicize them, humiliate them, embarrass them, shame them, and
all you gotta do is take their ass, kick their ass out, tell them they can't go to no more NBA games, and that'll do it for them, because obviously they're a lover of the NBA. All right, make them watch it on TV because they don't know how to act. All right?
Some cases, arrest them and put them in jail.
Look,
I'm all
arrest them if they do something that's harmed someone, but you're never going to get arrested for dumping popcorn on someone's head. I'm sorry.
for it.
Look, you keep talking about what the arena should do. Just because you buy a ticket to a sporting event doesn't mean as you enter the arena, you exit civilization. You still exist in civilization. And laws of civility, like rules and then actual laws of civility, are there for everybody. Now, Russell Westbrook is talking about what would happen in the street if he came up to him and dumped popcorn on him. Stephen A., I see that as no different than putting your hands on somebody. You can't violate somebody like that physically. Middle finger, to me, that's a gray area. I don't know. I have to think about it.
Just go there after just getting his ass whooped. He goes there, he walks down there, and he gets that pop. He's like, mother, boy, Yeah, I can just imagine, man. I know how it is to lose, man. It's crazy.
About that, but you physically assault somebody. Oh, popcorn is light and everything. Stop. But if he smacked that dude in the face, that wouldn't cause any permanent damage either, right? So Russell Westbrook's talking about what would happen in the street. But let me tell you what should happen in the street if we behave like adults. Get arrested. You can't because that's physically violating somebody. No, I forget about just like what the sporting or what the arena should do. Westbrook should press charges. There should be some kind of criminal consequence.
Press what charges? Press what charges? Okay, you going to take it to the police? Yeah, I'm going to press charges for assault. Okay, assault what? Did the person drop the popcorn? Do you have any marks on you? Are you harmed? Did you break any bones as a result of it? Are your feelings hurt because you just lost and this happened? Right? If you won and somebody poured it on you, hey, it's a celebration. You can pour champagne on my head and everything, right? Come on, man, give me a break.
Mike Tyson touched on this when he said what you alluded to, Stephen A., and he was talking about the media. You know why the media talks wild sometimes? Because no one gets punched in the mouth, right? And with social media, that involves just...
He said Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, he lived by the real laws of the jungle. You talk trash to me, I'm going to beat your ass. You're right. Mike Tyson did say that.
Basically, practically the whole world. But there are consequences like that, realistically, what's going to happen if you violate somebody. And then there's also what should happen. You spit on somebody, and you do it in public. There are cameras, as LeBron said. Put the cameras on them. Find out who it is. There should be a consequence. You dump something on someone's head, there should be a consequence for that, too. A ticket to an arena is not an exit from civilization. And by the way, those laws of civility are there to protect people who need them, right? In other words, the dude who dumps the popcorn, I'll bet you if Westbrook came at him, he'd be looking for someone to enforce the rules of civility then.
Let me get in here for a second.
I agree, absolutely. What the guy did is over the line. What you do is you take and you give an appropriate punishment. Ban their ass from going to games. That's it. All this other criminal stuff, I don't know what the hell y'all talking about.
Because the other thing that irks me is have a little class. The man is injured. He's playing his heart out. It's a playoff game. And you're dumping popcorn on...
Nobody cares about that at a game, Molly. Nobody cares about him being injured. None of that. All right? Nobody cares about that.
And as far as arrest, if it's simple assault for throwing something at somebody once, so he should be arrested with the popcorn. And it's battery for spitting on someone.
Yeah, so both of them, neither one, Stephen A. and Max don't agree with that. You can just tell by the expressions on their face. I think what she just said is ridiculous. However, they can't say anything right now because of the time we live in, where it's almost criminal to check the opinion that's uttered by a woman in public. That's almost like abuse and assault, right? This here is. And this is nonsense because right now, to be on a show like this is intellectual debate. This is like intellectual battle. Me going at it with you. She decides to step in and opine, offer an opinion. If one of them were to refute her, they have to be very careful. Like for example, Max and Stephen A. can go at each other as hard as they want. Stephen A. has the right to go at Max. He can call him an idiot, a fool, buffoon. I don't recommend it, but he could do that. There's times he say, I think you're just wrong, and this and that, right? Max is expected to be able to handle that type of criticism from Stephen A. and he can level it back at Stephen A. Because sometimes these debates get hard on these shows. However, Molly lives by a different rule, okay? Because she's a woman and because of the time we're in, right? I don't believe men are intrinsically more intelligent than women. I don't believe that at all. So for me, it's an insult when, though women are typically more, emotional than men. This is just, a known thing. However, women are not less intelligent when it comes to processing data and formulating arguments and all of that. So I believe it's an insult that she's really allowed to go out there and just say whatever ridiculous opinion it is. Like, popcorn is assault and spitting is battery, and they have to just sit there and just kind of accept that as being a valid opinion. This is another part of the problem that we have. So here, Molly really is given this treatment that is just not due to the opinion that she gave. She should be able to be told that that opinion was ridiculous. So that's what I'll say. That opinion is absolutely ridiculous. It's completely over the line in terms of sensitivity. And it's a shame that Stephen A. and Max can't say what needs to be said in order to shoot that ridiculous stuff down.
They both should be arrested. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. Why is it always white guys to black men? It makes me uncomfortable. And I hate...
This is the other thing here, okay? Ever since, I would say, the end of the Barack Obama presidency, and even during his presidency, you had shows like the Jamel Hill and I believe the guy Michael Thomas... what's his name? Michael Thomas, I'm sure. They had the show His and Hers, where it was popular to come out and just say these types of statements, some of which are true and appropriate in certain instances. Like, for example, the Colin Kaepernick situation, which I think was the way it was handled was absolutely just over the top, and ridiculous. Number one, I believe Colin Kaepernick does have the right to kneel before the flag because we have a constitution in the United States. This is not North Korea. This is not Russia, right? So the law, those who run the law, who are in charge, have a right to protect Colin Kaepernick, his constitutional right as a taxpayer and as a member of the country. However, Colin Kaepernick has to also understand that the kneeling may have certain consequences on the part of certain people in the country who don't understand that type of move, who will be initially angry. However, when Colin Kaepernick comes out and says it has nothing to do with the military or disrespecting any of them, those people should be expected to kind of understand what he said and take him at his word, that is no disrespect to the country and that sort of thing. But what I also expect those people to do is apply that same thing to a Tim Tebow who kneeled, right? Anyway, I know I'm not trying to get into the Colin Kaepernick thing or whatever, right? Everybody has their sensitivities and what they do and what they don't. But what you have to understand, though, is that the NFL also has a particular aim and objective, and that is to make money, to produce revenue, the type of revenue that Colin Kaepernick himself wanted. So with that has to be an understanding that perhaps this platform may not be the best place to do that. I mean, these are just true facts. But anyway, since that time, though I don't necessarily disagree with Jamel on all the Kaepernick stuff and all of that, but there was just this sentiment here that on ESPN, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do all of that. All right. So, but as you saw, ESPN slowly got rid of His and Hers. They got rid of Jamel Hill, got rid of them, because that's kind of like the way the system works. They'll sit there and they'll be quiet, but they'll eventually get rid of you. If you remember the Me Too situation that happened, that was going on, with the women, and after the Harvey Weinstein stuff and all of that, and it started to carry over onto FS1, where Colin Cowherd's show, when he had the blonde white hair, the blonde hair white lady on there, that before Joy Taylor, and she got into it with LeVar Ball, and she was screaming, feminism and all of that kind of stuff. You saw what happened. Colin Cowherd didn't make any statements about it anyway, but you saw slowly they got rid of her. They gave her own show, which predictably failed, and then eventually we don't know where she's been. I don't even know if she still does American Ninja Warrior anymore. That's what the industry does. The industry has a particular goal and objective in mind, and they want to meet that. And this is what I want, especially black people on television, to kind of understand, okay? Use entertainment to work for you. Don't use it as a means to, just don't let it be just a platform where you're out there screaming, okay, we want this and we want that, right? Don't join in to this woke stuff unless you're going to be the one in control, in charge, and you have a plan in place that is clearly defined with objective in mind and an ability to use the platform to support the objective you have. Oftentimes what happens with this is there is no objective, right? When you talk about wokeism really is sometimes and wrongfully, ignorantly fused or seen as being the modern day black nationalism. And it is not. It is not that. There's a big difference between wokeism and black nationalism. Wokeism is connected to the idea of black people using the struggle that black people have had in America, dating back to slavery and Jim Crow and everything, in order to have run right behind it many of the other movements like, feminist movement, also the LGBT, the gay and the lesbian movement, so they can just ride coattail behind it as one group where everyone is against, the white Protestant male conservative. Like, that's the enemy. And we're going against, what I am urging is that we don't fall into that stuff. And part of falling into that stuff is these types of comments that we see from people like this here. Molly is trying to make it seem like, it's always, it's a racial undertone behind, the fan putting his middle finger up at Westbrook. Now, it's possible the person could have that. However, it doesn't necessarily have to be so. Every time a white person disrespects a black person, it does not mean racism is the reason. Sometimes he's just an ignorant, white, disrespectful guy. And every time a black person does something disrespectful to a white person, it does not mean he's doing it because that white person is white. It could be that he's just a disrespectful black guy. You understand? All right. But Molly's calling for that.
Seeing it. And it's continuing to happen. When all these instances, when we're going back to white guys with black men. And it's just not okay.
Well, it's definitely
What's not okay is you trying to make it into that. That's what's not okay as well. And then secondly, come on. All right. I'm never going to subscribe to this victimization thing. Never going to do that. All right. Now, when I view the ancestors in the black struggle, for me, I don't see, because I am a descendant of like people who were enslaved here, right? Okay. For me, my ancestors were survivors. They weren't victims. They were survivors who were put in a situation where they had to make do and survive. No different from many of the Russians who were enslaved in Turkey or those types of situations. It's just the way it is. The Israelites were enslaved in Egypt. All right, these people to me are survivors. Okay, not just these victims who need the same people who oppress them to free them. No, you take your own situation, you gather your people together, and you help free yourself. You help build for yourself. What I would rather see Russell Westbrook do is just focus on the game. Get your $200 million or whatever you get. Take some of that money and go buy some land, build some houses on it, and take some black people who are homeless or who are struggling or who are wanting to go out there and, do what they got to do to get money and put them in some houses, man. Build a neighborhood. Like if we have bad neighborhoods, like many of the neighborhoods, like in Philadelphia right now, we have over almost 300 murders, okay, on pace to breaking records of 600 murders. If the neighborhood is bad, okay, clean it up. Go through, clean up the houses. All right, how about go build another neighborhood, man? Go get some land and build houses on it. These types of things is what I would like to see these NBA players do rather than marching and preaching and all of that. No, you got to just start building. How about open up some companies, build some Fortune 500 companies that employ kids from the inner city so that they're not tempted to go out and shoot someone or rob someone. And that instead they have other options, man, that were put there by intelligent black men who took the money that they got from the sport and went and built their own thing. This is what I'm calling for. I don't have time for this constant victimization stuff because I know what it leads to. It leads to having the same problems 50 years from now that you have now. We've been a victim since the 60s, and we're still complaining about joblessness. We're still complaining about not having an education that's up to standard. We're still complaining about all of that stuff. Before 50 years before that, it was the same thing in the 1920s. You were complaining about the same thing. Okay, what changes and what brings about change is having the same attitude of those people who built Tulsa, Oklahoma. Even though that was challenging and destroyed, you rebuild. Build. I don't want to hear this, and I'm sorry I'm getting off on a tangent, but this is the type of stuff I don't have time for.
Not okay, and I think, what Max was alluding to, and my man Champ just texted me about a few minutes ago. I'm going to modify my position just a touch. One and you're done. You should be banned from NBA arenas. I think that's what Max is saying.
This is what happened after you heard Molly's response. Oh, man, Stephen A. Smith, man. Get a backbone, Ock.
To some degree, listening to you, Molly, I think that's where you're coming from, outside of obviously being arrested. And the more I think about it, you know what? No second chance. Because, again...
Yes, I can't tell Molly how I really feel because then the producers are going to call me to the side and say, you made Molly cry. Okay, Stephen A., you can't continue to do this. If you make Molly cry, then the women, who invest in our commercials, right, they're going to revoke, money from yogurt and stuff like that. All right, so come on.
In a civilized society, we actually do know better already. And the fact that you're doing it is only because you think you can. Now, when Mike Tyson talks about, media people and, because they can't get punched in the face, I want to be clear. Mike Tyson is talking about people who calling you out your name and doing some of the things that they would never do. He's not talking about people critiquing his fight game and whether or not he'd lose to Lennox Lewis or Roy Jones or somebody. He's talking about that excessive stuff that people engage in out.
Good point, Stephen A. Smith, because that was my take on the whole situation between Kwame Brown and Steven Jackson. In my opinion, Kwame Brown's completely out of line because Steven Jackson and Matt Barnes talked about him as a basketball player. And that's part of your life as being a person who plays for the public. Never lose sight of that. You're playing a game that is a spectator sport. That's what you get paid to do. So spectators will talk about your game, and that will include other players as well. Because players, when they're done playing basketball in their early 30s and so on, because typically you're not going to play basketball forever. So they have to do other things to make money. So they get into podcasting. They get into working on shows like this here for networks and so on. So with that, part of that job is opining on people's game, right? When you start talking about, what people did at the club or what people did, how they raise their kids or don't raise their kids and all of that, that's over the line. And that's why people who, I have a funny way. If you really were into that Kwame thing, I have a funny opinion about you as a person. Because if that's the type of stuff that entertains you, then I definitely don't want you to know nothing about me.
Side of the ring, and he's absolutely right about that. And I think that these players, you got too many people that can be sensitive, and their definition of people coming at them is people criticizing their game. And
Kwame.
That's ridiculous, which is something I'll get into later. But I will tell you that as it pertains to this particular instance,
yeah, I don't know why this keeps stopping.
Understood it okay. Most athletes get it, even if they don't like it, they're bitter about criticism or anything. They're not taking it to the next level. It's the fans who are doing it. The fans think it's okay to assault athletes.
It's not okay.
And Molly's point is a very interesting one.
Yeah. You see the optic.
It's just ridiculous, okay? Right. In closing, it's not okay to go on and do anything to the players as far as throwing stuff at them or any of that. That's not okay. But at the end of the day, those people are paying. And I know a lot of y'all don't want to hear this, but it's the truth. It's a business. It's about making a profit. Those people are paying $100 for bad seats. They're paying $500 for better seats. Some are paying over $1,000 just to be close to the court. Right, I hear in some stadiums like out in the Bay Area to go see a Golden State game, you can't get a seat for under $500. All right, the NBA, whether the players feel the way they feel about it or not, the NBAs are always going to look at that. They're going to look at their source of revenue, and they're never going to go too far against the fans. They're never going to be so hard on the fans where it makes them uncomfortable or anything like that. What they'll simply do is acknowledge that coming to a game is not a right, but it's a privilege, like a driver's license. So what you'll do is you take that away from them, and that will deter most people. If anyone comes in and they do other than that and go too far, throw something dangerous at a player or whatever, now we're talking about arresting, and we talk about taking legal legal steps. But that's pretty much it, man, when it comes to that. Sixers, I still believe we're going to sweep Washington. Looks like Westbrook is going to be out, unfortunately. So, till next time, man. Peace.